11 firefighters trapped in a burning building with only seconds to live. Within minutes, a routine response spiraled into chaos. Explosions ripped through the structure, flames engulfed crews both inside and on the roof, and 11 firefighters found themselves fighting, not the fire, but for their own lives. This is the true story of the Boyd Street Fire, a night that changed the Los Angeles Fire Department forever, and showed the world just how fast ordinary can turn into catastrophic. But before we continue, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more. High above a burning building, a dangerous mix of illegal storage, volatile chemicals, and a rapidly collapsing situation would turn a quiet Sunday evening into a desperate fight for survival. Back up, back up. As the sun began to set on Saturday, May 16, 2020, the crew at Fire Station 9, located in the Skid Row district of downtown Los Angeles, were wrapping up what felt like an ordinary shift. Station 9 is known as the busiest firehouse in America, responding to nearly 100 emergency calls each day. That evening, Captain Scott Barkley was on duty alongside 18 firefighters. The team shared a tight bond, the kind that only forms under constant stress and shared danger. They'd just finished dinner and were joking around, playing a quick game to decide who'd get stuck washing dishes. Luck wasn't on Captain Barkley's side that night. Rolling snake eyes meant the chore was his, drawing laughs from the rest of the crew. But before he could reach the sink, the station's alarm blared through the room. Instantly, the easy laughter disappeared. The firefighters geared up, jumped into their trucks, and sped off toward the call. Rescue 209 and other units were dispatched as well. Within just 4 minutes, the first engines reached the scene. Captain Barkley and his crew saw thin gray smoke drifting from a one-story commercial building in an area locals call Bong Row, a stretch filled with smoke shops, glassware suppliers, and stores stacked with butane canisters. It looked like another simple fire call, at least at first. When they tried to force entry through the rolling steel doors, the crew ran into problems. The first door opened to reveal storage racks piled high, blocking their path. "We're trying to find a way in," one firefighter radioed. "It's tight, and we've got moderate smoke pushing from the side." A nearby door finally gave them access to a narrow corridor, barely 4 or 5 feet wide, tight enough that the team had to move in single file. While some firefighters advanced through the cramped passage, Captain Barkley led another group up to the roof to begin ventilation. Up top, they found moderate smoke, almost white, drifting from the rear of the building. At first, it didn't look too bad, but what they didn't know was that beneath them, hidden among the storage and chemicals, a deadly chain reaction was already beginning. At around 6:45 p.m., fully geared up with helmets and safety equipment, the crew working the roof began their ventilation efforts. They moved to roughly the 75-yard point along the structure and cut their first opening, what firefighters call a ventilation hole or keyhole. From above, one firefighter noticed something unusual about the smoke drifting from the cut. He described it as having a shimmering, distorted look, the kind of wavy effect you see behind a jet engine on a hot runway. Despite the odd movement of the smoke, no one yet gave the order to pull back. Another firefighter, glancing toward the rear of the building, spotted flames shooting sideways instead of climbing upward, an ominous sign that something wasn't right. Meanwhile, conditions inside and on the roof were worsening fast. The firefighters who'd entered the building had advanced only about 3 to 4 meters when they came upon a ladder jammed in place, leaving barely a 2-foot gap to squeeze through. They realized that if they had to retreat quickly, that narrow space could turn deadly. Using a pike pole, one of them discovered a mezzanine area overhead. Then, almost instantly, everything changed. Visibility dropped to near zero. The smoke, once a cooler brownish haze below eye level, suddenly turned pitch black and dense as if a giant door had slammed shut behind them. By 6:57 p.m., a low rumbling noise started to echo through the structure. At first, some thought it was just the roof team moving above them. But then came a rapid series of pops, small, sharp bursts like strings of firecrackers. Within less than a minute, the popping grew louder, faster, and far more intense. By 7 p.m., the entire building began to shake and vibrate. Captain Barkley, still positioned on the roof, later described the sensation as standing beneath a speeding roller coaster. The thunderous sound just kept going, never ending. Inside, the temperature skyrocketed. "Back up! Back up! Back up for a minute!" someone shouted over the radio. The popping had become deafening, compared by survivors to the roar of a freight train, or even a space shuttle launch. At 7:01 p.m., the nightmare hit. A violent explosion ripped through the building, sending a massive fireball blasting outward and upward, engulfing firefighters both inside and on the roof. 3 blocks away, Geraldine Cleveland, watching from her apartment window, saw the flash and plume. "Everyone thought a bomb had gone off," she recalled later. "It looked like a mushroom cloud." The blast was so fierce it scorched a fire engine parked across the street, melted helmets, and seared right through the firefighters' protective coats and hoods. Captain Barkley and his roof team were preparing to retreat when the world suddenly turned to flame. Inside, the shockwave knocked firefighters to their hands and knees. Disoriented and blinded by the heat, they scrambled toward the exit, only to find their path blocked by the same ladder, now wedged at a 45-degree angle, trapping them inside as the inferno roared around them. Crouched low in the smoky hallway, one firefighter tried desperately to shove the ladder out of the way, but when he stood, the searing heat scorched his back through his gear. Up above, Captain Barkley shouted over the chaos, urging his crew toward the aerial ladder that had been swung into position by a fire truck on the street below. "Let's go!" "Move it!" he yelled, pushing his team toward their only escape route. But when they reached it, a new horror became clear. The ladder itself was on fire. Some froze in disbelief, terrified to move, while others, running purely on adrenaline, sprinted straight for it and leapt onto the rungs. As they began their descent, flames erupted from the building's facade directly beneath them. One firefighter recalled glancing down and realizing, "Everything's burning. My hands, my arms, my helmet, even my face mask." Captain Barkley and his crew clung to the aerial ladder, surrounded by an inferno. Then, without warning, a second explosion ripped through the structure, blasting another massive fireball over them. One firefighter tried to pull himself down, only to find his axe jammed between the ladder sections, pinning him in place. He said it felt like 300 pounds holding me there. Others thought about jumping, but when they looked down, all they saw was fire stretching from the roof to the street. One closed his eyes and began praying aloud, begging God to stop the pain. At 7:04 p.m., a frantic "Mayday" call came over the radio. Firefighters, who had already reached the ground, rushed back toward the burning building to rescue those still trapped. Captain Barkley was yanked headfirst down the ladder with such force that parts of his gear tore loose. Another firefighter described hanging upside down from the truck after someone grabbed his boot just in time to stop him from falling. Inside, firefighters were crawling over one another, trying to find any way out. Members of Engine 9 scrambled up onto storage racks, clawing toward open air. Outside, the scene was pure chaos. Injured firefighters lay scattered across the pavement. One later recalled, "I was crawling in the street looking around, and it felt like a ghost town. Nobody was there. I just kept saying, 'Please, someone spray water on me. My head's on fire. My arms are on fire.'" Engineer Scott Brennan from Engine 9 grabbed a hose line and began dousing his teammates, cooling their burning gear and skin. The heat was so powerful that it ignited homeless encampments on the sidewalk across the street. By 7:10 p.m., the situation was critical. Ambulances began ferrying injured firefighters to nearby hospitals. Finally, at 8:08 p.m., after nearly 2 hours of battle, the inferno was declared extinguished. In total, more than 230 Los Angeles firefighters had responded to one of the most devastating incidents in department history. In the aftermath, investigators combed through the smoldering remains of the building, determined to uncover what had triggered the devastating blast. What they found was that the site belonged to Smoke Tokes, a business operating as a warehouse that supplied materials used in the production of butane honey oil. Over the following days and weeks, the investigation team conducted more than 60 interviews with firefighters who had responded that night and meticulously examined the debris left behind. Their findings revealed that the explosion was fueled by butane canisters and nitrous oxide whippets that had been improperly stored inside the structure. The building itself had been divided into 2 units, separated by a thin partition wall that wasn't fire-blocked, a design flaw that allowed the flames to race through both sides almost unhindered. Unit A contained typical combustibles, while Unit B was stacked high with pallets of nitrous oxide and butane. When the nitrous oxide began to off-gas at around 106 degrees Fahrenheit, it created a volatile chemical mix that, when combined with the butane vapors, set off a series of violent explosions. The narrow shape of the building acted like a nozzle, channeling the blast pressure and intensifying the inferno. All 11 injured firefighters were rushed to LAC plus USC Medical Center. 3 of them were listed in critical but stable condition, and 2 required ventilators to assist their breathing. Captain Scott Barkley was among the most seriously hurt. Many of the injured underwent multiple surgeries. One firefighter later revealed he had already endured 25 operations, with more ahead. Beyond the physical wounds, the trauma lingered. Many of the responders struggled with PTSD in the months following the disaster. The 2020 Boyd Street fire remains one of the most harrowing chapters in the Los Angeles Fire Department's history. All 11 firefighters survived, a miracle given the scale of destruction. But many live with life-changing injuries. Captain Barkley and his crew's bravery, composure, and training in those final moments likely prevented what could have been a far greater tragedy. In the wake of the incident, the LAFD introduced new safety protocols governing when crews must wear their face pieces and go on air, recognizing that this protective gear was instrumental in saving lives during the Boyd Street explosion. For witnesses like Geraldine Cleveland, who watched the fire erupt from her rooftop 3 blocks away, the event served as a powerful reminder of the dangers firefighters face every day. How a seemingly routine call can spiral into a fight for survival within seconds. If you found this story compelling, consider subscribing. It helps us continue sharing these powerful real-life accounts of courage and resilience.